and Governance. That will be the office of the president. So as we speak, they're gearing up in Parliament to, have those line items on their office of the presidency, capital expenditures and current expenditures examined. This morning as well, we had, a little visit from none other than Miss Letitia Wright, the star in um, Black Panther. And if you're watching on the screen, you see her coming in to meet the opposition MPs in their lounge. And it was a really nice, light moment where, they got to thank her for the visit and, share, their hopes and their blessings to Miss Wright. And she got to speak to us as well about the things that she hopes to see in Guyana. And she talked about her passion for youth and children and wanting to, help along that line. So this morning was a really good morning where the MPs got to meet Miss Wright. And of course, they got to review estimates in some extent this morning. So you can take a quick look, and we have photos up as well on our pages. And as we have these budget reviews and estimates, feel free to just pop in at any time, see what's happening there. Continue to follow all our pages, the APN UFC page, the People's National Congress Reform page, and the Office of the Leader of the Opposition page on Facebook, as we continue to keep you updated in terms of what is happening with Budget 2023. All right. So as we speak, I see the speaker is in the house. Let's see what's happening there. I do believe they're about to begin the examination of estimates for the Office of the President under the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance. So we'll take you right into that, and just note that we will be covering this live and we'll give you updates as we go.
Activities that will help on vocational training, social counseling, etc., that would help people, particularly focusing on issues affecting men, as you know, life expectancy, mental health, and education, as well as addressing domestic violence.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honorable Member, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, with reference to the building of homes, community work, and enhancement of sport facilities, and so on, can the Honorable Minister specify what criteria will be used to assess so as to ascertain the urgency of need in terms of especially these constructions of homes and so on? Is there a format where people can apply for assistance and the men on mission will do an assessment? Is there that kind of arrangement?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Paul, I think that you may have seen the conditions under which a number of the very elderly lived in horrible, horrible conditions, and that those persons were addressing people who were living in very bad conditions and too poor to be able to help themselves. And so there's no criteria, as you said, in relation to, as you asked, in relation to sporting facilities, etc. But if one goes into a community and there are a number of social problems where interventions could help to address these concerns, the men on mission would do that. You also know the men on mission have their own body that makes decisions for them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, sir. I understand what the Honorable Minister is saying, but in an instance like this, I would like to believe that for prudent financial management and proper spending of taxpayers' money, and in this sense, $500 million, I'm of the opinion that there should be an assessment team to ascertain on a needs basis the assistance for our residents and citizens. Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree that there are elderly people that need assistance, but similarly, there should be some assessment, prudent financial management, and proper spending of the taxpayers' money to assist the people who are in need. Can the Honorable Minister say if they are going to establish a secretariat or some management committee to do that level of assessment so that the money is spent not on selective purpose, but rather on a needs basis?
Honorable Minister,
Mr. Speaker, there is a body that is managing the men on mission. These are made up with very high and reputable leaders of our country, the head of the army, the head of the police, a number of pastors, I believe, a number of civil society representatives, so that these are the persons who will make decisions on the usage of the money. And if I know Pierre Sabina and the Office of President well enough, that they will make sure that financial propriety is managed.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
go ahead,
Can the
Honorable
honorable,
Member.
thank you. Can the honorable minister say what is the structure in place for this Men on Mission program? I heard her saying that there are a number of reputable persons managing this program. So may I ask, who is the head of the program? Who's the deputy head? Who is the secretary? Who's the treasurer? And what is the hierarchical structure of this newly established program where we're asking taxpayers to fund with $500 million?
Honorable Minister,
Mr. Speaker, this is a new initiative. And as I said, it is led by, it is not airy-fairy, sir. This is a men on mission. You know, maybe you're too young, but there have been many attempts over the years to get men involved in advocacy on domestic violence, sexual violence, which my colleague on the other side, Mrs. Lawrence, would be familiar with, for example. And many of these have been fleeting and not held their ground for long. This is the first time we have a very powerful organization, and not to use it as a formal organization, but a coming together of men in our country, over 1,000 men in each region, who are involved in responsible parenthood, responsible lifestyles, being opposed to domestic violence and sexual violence, and recognizing their role in the community to play a more active role in terms of caring and reaching out to people who are less fortunate. So it is a new initiative. It is led right now, as I said, by the head of the Ghana Defense Force, the head of the Ghana Police Force, the number of religious leaders of Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, and a number of other leaders. This is a very broad-based, led by a very broad-based body of people that are involved with it. And as it gets on, it will take on greater structures and frameworks and so on. However, at this point, they are doing important work in raising the image of our men, which I'm sure you agree with, Mr. Duncan, and that in terms of men playing a more important role in building society. Any of us as women having meetings in communities, the majority of people who turn out are women. Women are engaged. Women want to come and find out what's going on. Our men have been somehow lagging back. This brings men, 1,000 for every region, on board to make a powerful movement of men deciding and playing a greater role in the issues that confront them as men themselves, as well as society. So the money is to deal with some of these issues. You know, I mean, the criteria for the elderly and the indigent, I don't know what criteria you want. That someone is having a latrine, so they're available. Someone living in a tarpaulin is available. Come off of it. These are very, very poor people who are living under terrible conditions. We must have a humanitarian view instead of trying to clock everything by criteria. If you find a woman living in terrible conditions, abandoned, don't we want to lift her up? Don't we want to lift an old man up? Or are we losing our humanity? So I believe that the men on mission with $500,000, $500,000 can bring in a number of programs that can make people's lives better, and including their own, We want our men to be able to deal with their health issues. We want our men to be able to deal with improving their education. We want our men to not pummel women, to not be beating women as we have in our society. And this is part of the objective of Men on Mission. So I understand where Mr. Mayapal is coming, but let us give this movement that is not old, it's recently started, let it give it its chance to take a form and organization. What will happen automatically with $500 million is that the fiduciary oversight will be done and will be scrutinized by the Auditor General's office as per norm.
Thank you,
Mr.
Minister.
Chairman,
Honorable Member, Mr. Mayapal.
thank you, sir. I must say that the whole lecture on good practice and humanitarian and so on is good. I support humanitarian practice also, and I support the fact that those who need help ought to be helped. But my concern, sir, is that we're asking the people of Guyana to put into a program 500 million Guyana dollars, and there seems to be no financial management in keeping with the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act for this money. So I ask the Honorable Minister again, who sits on the Public Accounts Committee with myself, who spends time to scrutinize the expenditure of government in keeping with the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, the Procurement Act, the stores regulations, and all the other laws that governs the finances of this country. What is the established structure that is in place for the disbursement of this fund, and what is being used to assess who will get the help? Is it just that these reputable men in the name of the GDF head, the Guyana Police Force head, the spiritual leaders and so on, is it that they just choose a community to go into and see somebody who's vulnerable and make an assessment and decide to build? Or is it that they're going to give the opportunity of doing a proper assessment of areas in different regions? Will this, and another question to follow up on that, sir, this $500 million, is there a cap where they will say 100 million for region 1, 100 million for region 2, or is it just isolated to one region? All those are concerns, sir, because all across this country, there are poor people who need assistance. So what system do we have to cater for the poor and vulnerable, as opposed to this ad hoc manner?
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Minister,
would you mind if I sit down more?
just before you answer, yes, you can sit and answer the question. We have had a good speech there by the Honorable Minister to ask two questions. And I would ask the persons asking questions to be very succinct with their question rather than making speech. In fact, Mr. Mayapal went into some speculation too. So, Honorable Minister, you may sit and attempt to and answer the two questions which were asked.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is capital. We're looking at the capital allocation in the budget under Office of the President for Program 01. And therefore, this is a capital issue. A number of these issues relate to policy, and I would therefore suggest to the honorable members that the policy questions you're asking can probably go in questions to the ministers so that you're able to respond in more detail to these issues. In terms of the fiduciary oversight, which was asked for by Mr. Mayapal, any use of the capital money in the Office of the President must go through the normal process that are covered by the Procurement Act, the financial laws, and the FMAA. So that some of the concerns that Mr. Mayapal has, I think will be addressed by that. And I wish to remind Mr. Mayapal that we that we looked at the audit performance record during the COVID vouchers, which was supposed to give 11,000 people vouchers during the COVID in 2020, and that 9,000 never received any, and there's no documentation to show for that. So I do understand where Mr. Maipaul is coming from. Having come from that past, I would understand why he's highly suspicious of an allocation like this. But I wish to assure Mr. Maipaul that we are not the same as you are. Now, I don't mean that you personally, Mr. Maipaul. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much,
Chairman.
Honorable Minister. Yes, Honorable Member, Mr. Maip.
Thank you. Just to remind Honorable Minister that I am Honorable Mahi.
You're asking a question or you're reminding her about something?
But I didn't hear she said
Ask a
Honorable
question,
Mahipol.
please. We're not
I'm
gonna
also-
encourage an exchange of policy statements here. You can ask a question of a policy question with respect to what the money, but reminding is another issue. Do you have another
I was ju-
question?
Thank you, sir. I was just saying to her that I'm Honorable Mahipol. I didn't hear her saying Honorable.
My
Honorable
deepest
Member.
apologies, Mr. Maipaul.
And,
My
and
deepest
secondly, sir,
apologies.
is
You
there
are
what-
most honorable.
Sir, may I ask the minister what caused her or her ministry or her government to come to this cap of $500 million? What caused that? What factor was used or what?
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister.
Can she pull down the mic, please, sir? I wasn't hearing her clearly.
Oh,
just now.
sorry. Yeah, Mr.
Thank you.
Speaker, the figure I understand that came up was by the, remember this is covering several regions of Guyana, that this was a projection of the kind of work that could be done in the year of 2023 by a number of the projections. So these are projections. Obviously, if the money is not used, it will be returned to the consult fund. If the money is used, we can then assess how well it has been used for the benefit of our people.
Thank you, Honorable
Mr.
Minister.
Chairman. My final question, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable Member, Mr. Maipon.
Thank you. Can the minister say how much from this sum will be allocated to regions 4, 7, and 10, respectively?
Honorable Minister.
I'm afraid, honorable, most honorable member, I have no such information to share with you.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
Sir, a follow-up. Can the honorable minister say whether monies from this 500 million will be spent in regions 4, 7, and 10?
I assume that the male members of this house who are from 4, 7, and 10 are also involved with Men on Mission, and therefore they can have a great influence on what happens in regions 4, 7, and 10. I would sincerely hope that the honorable men of this house, particularly on the other side, see it as their duty and responsibility as leaders, male leaders of our country, to join Men on Mission, so that we can have the male leaders of our country be very active and to have a say in how some of this money is being used in your respective communities.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member, Ms. Finance.
Thank
I
you.
know it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up on Men on a Mission, sir. The Honorable Minister, given that Men on a Mission, it's not a constitutional agency, it is not, this allocation is not given under subsidies to local organization. When we are doing capital budgeting, is the Honorable Minister saying that when budgeting for Men on a Mission, they use a different system as against these are the things we want to do in 2023, and now you're just saying, oh, we're just going to put this money here, and whatever comes up, that's how we're going to be spending it, because it's a capital expenditure, and of such, every detail should have been accounted for to arrive at $500 million.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a program which has a work program which was developed by the leaders of it, and which has come up with an estimate and a projection for $500 million. The capital works, most of this is capital works. In terms of the areas of, as I said, housing, the housing for the indigent, programs, etc. So that this is allowing the body to have access to funds and obviously will be accountable. There's a work program looking at region by region, what are the interventions that are needed? Some may be soft, and I cannot answer if there's a choice of putting $500 million under local, because it's not an organization like civil society bodies or other state bodies. This is a program that has been started as an initiative. So it does not have does not fulfill the same criteria as when you give subventions to organizations. Therefore, the only place to put it was under capital. And therefore, there's a work program that looks at it, and the money will be accessed in keeping with the financial laws and regulations of our country.
Thank you,
But
Minister.
if there
Honorable-
are other questions you have on policy, you're welcome to put questions to the minister after the budget.
Honorable Member, Ms. Finance.
Thank you, sir. Men on a mission, because I'm noticing the minister's response as saying why it's not listed on the subsidies to local organization and so forth. So my question is this registered? Is this a registered body? And if so, where is it registered? Under what program?
I think,
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I made it very clear, this is a program, not an organization. It's an initiative, it's a program to try in the first instance to bring people together, in particular men together, to get them to play a more meaningful role and leadership role in our society, particularly the community levels. So it may turn in, Honorable Member Finance, into an organization. It may, but at this point, it is a program with a particular objective, which is emerging as it develops. The main thing was to get 1,000 men involved in every region across the political divide, hopefully across the religious divide, across the gender divide, across the ethnic divide, and that it has succeeded in bringing to the fore. I'm sure there are other steps and stages will take place, but this is where we are at now. So it is not an organization, it's not a registered organization, it is a program.
Just one follow-up.
Honorable Member.
Thank you. The honorable minister said in her response prior that the majority of this money is for capital expenditure. What portion of this is for capital expenditure and what portion is not for capital expenditure?
Honorable Minister.
I'm advised that all is for capital.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, I now put a question that the sum stated for Agency 11 Office of the President, Administration, Capital Expenditure stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, please turn to pages 38 and 39. Honorable members, I propose a question that the sum stated for Agency 1, Office of the President, Program 012, Policy Development and Presidential Advisory Services, current expenditure stands part of the estimates. Honorable Member, Ms. Han.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I might line item 6321, but I'd like for some clarification from the minister. Can you say whether the institute that is spoken of on page 16 of volume 2 on the indicators is the Institute of Applied Sciences and Technology? Because it just says institute. I just want to clarify.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
Go ahead, Honorable.
volume 1 on page 470 shows that the IASC received 255 million in 2022 and is budgeted to receive 270 million this year. After looking at the IAST website and news agencies, there's nothing that shows what they were doing over the last 3 years almost. So can the minister state whether whether IST has started any new project or intends to start any new project that would require them to be awarded even an increase in this subvention this year?
Honorable Minister.
The increase in the ISD budget is mainly due to the increase in the capital budget. Yeah, and that, sir, the main cost, the largest cost in that figure for budget in the capital of 47,900,000 is 34,365,000 for analytical lab system at the UG campus, Turkine. This will allow for more diversified tests so that samples in mining, agri, oil and gas from clients do not have to be sent overseas. And at least 3 persons are already trained to use the equipment. So these are not the same tests being done by other agencies. These are different, and this would allow for what you call income revenue generation by the IAC. So out of the 47.9 million, 34.3 is basically the lab system, analytical lab system.
Thank you, Minister.
I don't know if that helps.
Honorable members, Honorable
Mr.
Member, Ms.
Chairman.
Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I will ask the minister to look at line item 33,011,000. This is a provision to lands and survey. And we're told that they will be opening new lands for agriculture, industrial, housing, and other developmental purposes. Could the minister indicate where are we going to see these new lands opening for these 3 purposes? Which regions?
Honorable Minister.
Listen to something. Mr. Speaker, my understanding is that the lands that they are being addressed here have to do with what registration of lands that have been waiting for quite a while. These are in Region 1, Region 7, Bush, and so on. So it is a very specific area working with Land Court to be able to rectify, regularize these lands. These are not, as far as I'm told, these are not lands dealing with housing or anything like that. These are people who have private land, have been occupying it for a long time, and have been waiting between the land court and the lands and surveys to regularize and complete the process. So this has nothing to do with housing or anything like that. This is all private land.
Mr. Chairman,
Honorable Member, Ms.
if I
Lawrence.
may,
Yes.
just to guide the minister to the legend, there are 2 things that they're going to do. One is the land regularization, which you just spoke of. And the first one says opening of new lands for agriculture, industrial, housing, and other developmental purposes. Am I to believe that that is incorrect?
No, sir. No, madam. No, I believe that both from the budget they put forward, these relate to Also new opening of lands that might be used for agriculture, etc. So there are two aspects of the lands and surveys, as far as I'm aware. This does not include Amerindian land titling. It does not, that's dealt with in a different way. It does not deal with, it's not dealing with state land, but they are dealing, for example, Montchoisy and Willemstad, these are lands that have been identified for this process in this period.
Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Maipo, Honorable Member.
thank you, sir. I turn the minister's attention to line item 6116, contracted employees. I see there's an increase there of about 38 million plus. Would the honorable minister please be kind to share with this house the top 3 designation for contracted employees and their total remuneration package, please?
Honorable Minister.
Honorable member, the 6116 contracted employees was 95 last year, 95 this 2023, and therefore there hasn't been an increase in the number of staff under 6116. And the top 3, so there's been no increase, but there have been increases with the 8%. The top 3 would be the director of the Ghana Technical Training College, the commissioner CEO of Ghana Lands and Surveys Commission, and the National Security Advisor, and the deputy commissioner, deputy CEO, Ghana Lands and Surveys Commission.
Can we have the total remuneration package, please, Mr. Chairman?
You mean what they receive every month, or you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Annual.
Every month.
The director, GTTC Inc., 1.3, 1,360,800. Commissioner, CEO, Lands and Surveys, 1,155,600. National Security Advisor, 808,920. And the Deputy Commissioner, Deputy CEO, Lands and Surveys, 808,920.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable members, I now put a question that the sum stated for program 012 National Policy Development and Presidential Advisory Services. Current expenditure stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, page 485. I propose a question that the sum stated for program 012, National Policy Development and Presidential Advisory Services, capital expenditure stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, I now put the question that the sum stated for Agency 012, National Policy Development and Presidential Advisory Services capital expenditure stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, please let us turn to pages 40 and 41. Honorable members, I propose a question that the sum stated for Agency 1, Office of the President, Program 013, Defense and Security, current expenditure stands part of the estimates. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could the minister indicate which new sites they will be putting this security at? I'm talking about 6281 on page 4 to 1, I note it has moved from 7.9 million to 21 plus million dollars.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Lawrence, this figure 62, what's it, 6281 deals with security for the NISA building itself, with having proper security there, armed security.
Mr. Chairman,
Honorable Member Mr. Mahi Paul.
thank you, sir. 6116 contracted employee. Would the honorable, I see there's an increase of 13 from 4. Would the honorable minister
Mr.
please provide a designation of the top 3 employees, contracted employees under this line item and their monthly remuneration package, please?
Honorable Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, this has to do with the hiring of a number of analysts for the NISA, so that one has a Defense Board Officer 1, Defense Board Officer 2, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 analysts, all paid 152,420 per month.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the line item 6294, there's a heavy increase there of over $100 million and more. Could the honorable minister?
Sorry, I
please give
can't
us
hear
a
you
number?
well, Honorable Member.
6294.
If the honorable minister can please give us at least an understanding of this significant increase of over $100 million.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Member, you know what NISA is, and you know what NISA's terms of reference are. And so it's a National Intelligence Security Agency, and that the reason for the variance and the request for increase is the increase in operational funding to conduct more operations along our borders, within our maritime zone, and across the spectrum of crime intelligence. So as you're aware that the border issues and border security, maritime security, further heightened, particularly now that we have oil and gas rigs out in our waters, etc. So these are to address a number of the heightened security concerns by NISA in terms of intelligence gathering and operations.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Minister.
Mr. Chairman.
Honorable members, I now propose a question that the sum stated for program 013 Defense and National Security current expenditure stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, let us turn to pages 42 and 43. Sorry,
Yeah, I'm just realizing.
sorry, I missed the capital. Turn to page 485. Yeah, it's the line items as reflected in the document before us. Honorable members, and I propose a question that the sum stated for Agency 13, Defense and National Security capital expenditure stands part of the estimates. Honorable Member Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Minister, I'm looking at line item 2507900, and I note a substantial increase from 25 million to 120 million provided for furniture and equipment. Could you lay over a breakdown of the furniture and equipment in the National Assembly?
Honorable members are laying over requests.
Well, I could easily read them out. They're not that long. But a number of the equipment has to do with analyzing based on their responsibilities as the intelligence agency, but the majority of issues are basic office equipment, cubicles, air conditioner, cameras, file cabinets, fire extinguishers, etc. But there are some pieces of equipment that I believe would not be in the best
Understood,
interest to.
understood,
I
Minister.
don't mind sharing it with Ms. Lawrence, but I would ask that,
Understood.
I would prefer
No
that that
issue.
not be circulated, which is a problem because every MP has a right to see when there's a request.
Thank you,
So I
Minister.
need your guidance on that.
Honorable Member Ms. Lawrence, there's some sensitive pieces of
Yes,
equipment.
I do
which you
understand,
will have
Mr.
an-
Chair.
Thank you very
I
much.
do. So I will withdraw from the laying over, but I would want to ask specifically whether any of this equipment is going to help us with our cyber crimes.
I
Honorable
believe
Minister.
that we're trying to improve our capability, but I don't think we have some capability, but we need to strengthen our capability in this area. Some of this may help as well, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I now put a question that the sum stated for Agency 13, Defense and National Security Capital Expenditure, stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. If we can turn to pages 42 and 43. Honorable members, I propose a question that the sum stated for Agency 1, Office of the President, Program 014, Public Policy and Planning, current expenditure stands part of the estimates.
Mr. Chairman,
Honorable Member, Mr. Mahipon.
thank you, sir. Sir, this program, Public Policy and Planning, has no staffing details. All are zero. But I see that there's sums of money allocated for different line items, speaking to 6221 to 6224. I also see a sum for local travel and subsistence at 6261 and some other line items there. May I ask the Honorable Minister who will be utilizing these sums of monies if there is no staffing details, no present staff for this program?
Honorable Minister.
And I do take into account, Honorable Minister, that through you, Mr. Chair, that this is the program where 318 million is going to go invest also. But they are separate, and that's an agency, a contribution to local organization. So who are the other monies that are budgeted here going to be spent by?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my understanding is that there's staff at the Office of the President who would be involved in this program of public policy and planning in terms of execution of programs, including outreaches, stakeholder forums, etc., as well as where required, for example, hiring consultants on public policy strategies and development of strategic plans. So that there's been an increase in the budget, for example, under 6284 to allow for this and including research and monitoring. So this includes staff that's already in the Office of President who will now be working on these issues.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to draw to your attention, given the answer by the Honorable Minister, that the indicators under this 014 public policy and planning has not applicable for monitoring of national developmental plan, etc. There's nothing there. Just want to bring that to her attention.
Oh, you
given
mean in
her
the
answer.
description?
But I,
in the
in the
description.
targets, in the targets.
Yes.
I would just like to turn my attention to 6321, local subsidies and contributions. All of this money is going to go invest, Mr. Chair. And there is just one target, number 4, which reads number of new national projects developed, and it says 1. We have an increase. I don't know whether in the budget presented, what Go Invest would have said to the honorable minister that they would have been given this money. What is it we're going to see? What we can see jumping out at us in 2023 from Go Invest?
Honorable Minister.
If they're not here, the minister can lay over something.
No,
for
I
us.
just give me a minute. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah. Just hold on. Yes, thank you for waiting, honorable member. I'm advised that based on the several delegations that came to visit Guyana interested in investment last year, for example, Jamaica, Saudi Arabia, and what was the other one? Dubai, that now this year there'll be follow-up in terms of bringing these expressions of interest into greater organizational form with Go Invest. Follow up, for example, with the offers and the interest, particularly in the oil and gas sector. So these three countries in particular will be focused on based on last year's discussions and delegations that came down.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, I now put a question that the
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. I
Honorable,
indicated.
sorry. Go ahead,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am looking at the same indicators that were just spoken about. Number 4, which says number of new national products developed. Mr. Speaker, for the target for 2023 is 1. 2022, 0 new national products were developed, and I took the opportunity to look for 2021 and 2020, and all said that 0 new national projects were developed. So, Mr. Speaker, I was just trying to get some clarity from the minister as to whether this shows, if this is the indicator which shows that there have been no new national or new new national projects being developed from 2020 to now, because it says 0 from 2022 and 2023, there's a hope that 1 new national project would be developed.
Honorable Minister.
These are only 2 new projects in 2022 now. Yeah, I'm advised that there are two projects that have been, they're working on between 2022 and now, and those are the call centers for Tushin and Enmore.
Honorable Member, Ms. Halley.
Just just to confirm that those projects have happened already. So is it the case that the indicators are wrong, that there have been no new national projects on board or completed or implemented since 2020?
They've been initiated but not completed.
Okay. So just for clarity also, these national projects being developed would be, this is not just for the president, office of the president, but this is nationwide, right?
Yes,
Just to
it's
confirm.
Go Invest, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Go Invest is responsible for the whole country, yes. In terms of opportunities for investment and development, yes.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honorable members, I now put the question that the sum stated for Agency 014, Public Policy and Planning Capital Expenditure. Sorry. Current expenditure stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, to page 485. And I propose a question that the sum stated for Program 014, Public Policy and Planning Capital Expenditure, stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, Honorable Member Ms. Hadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm at 250-7900, purchase of furniture and equipment. Mr. Speaker, as was stated by the Honorable Minister there, and from the early part of Volume 1, there's no staff here. And so I'm just querying as to the purchase of furniture and equipment is for which office?
This is OP staff that is functioning under this program of public policy and planning. 4 computers and 4 laptops. That's what the 2.5 million comes to. And this is the same amount that was budgeted in 2022. For furniture and equipment, that is.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member Ms. Hadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for clarification, the Honorable Minister stated earlier that the staff is already in offices under other programs and will just be assisting in these particular policies. So they should have furniture and desk in that particular program, and if there's any need, they would be able to get it under that program. So I'm trying to understand why it is that they now need more computers under this program, if they're just assisting in the analysis and whatever it is that they may need to do on the policy.
Honorable Minister.
I mean, I did say at some point, maybe I wasn't clear enough, that they are also looking to hire persons and consultancies. If one looks at 6284, there's an increase in the budget from 26 to 30 million. And I did say this would be involved with hiring consultants to inform on public policy strategies and development strategic plans. This would also involve things like advertisements, broadcasts, etc. So there is provision for the additional persons to work in the field as researchers or as consultants. And that the key, and if you look at 6294, there's an increase there, which again deals with research and payment for research studies on socioeconomic development or development baselines, as well as this would be supporting the research and monitoring and evaluation unit. So this has more to do with policy than and development of policy or research to be able to guide government in making decisions.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, I now put a question that the sum stated for Agency 14, Public Policy and Planning Capital Expenditure, stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, we can turn to pages 44 and 45. And I propose a question that a sum stated for Agency 1 Office of the President, Program 015, Environmental Management and Compliance, current expenditure stands part of the estimates. Honorable Member, Mr. Ramsey.
Under the international subsidies to local organizations, I see the page 470, the identical sum last year for the Environmental Protection Agency, 668, 676. In view of the need for strengthening at that institution, in view of all of the oil and gas and so on, wasn't there need for some extra monies for people here and the expertise to come into the EPA?
Honorable Minister.
A number of the issues raised by the honorable member, according to the EPA, we don't have to pay for certain services such as training, as there are existing mechanisms, the regional international relationship that are paying for a lot of the training of staff from EPA. And then in addition to that, the EIAs are paid for by the developers and not by the EPA. So there are two cost centers that are not catered, do not need to be catered in the budget by the EPA. The figures that they had last year has decreased, but part of this was because of there were a number of issues that related to flaring taxes, as you know. So the money, the revenue that came in, as you will see, under the revenue, $1.8 billion came in as revenue last year. And that this is the money the APA got from the flaring tax that was introduced. So $1.8 billion, and therefore they did not cater, of course, for revenue because it's hard to project, but that they have not increased because they feel that they would be, they're not expected to continue with flaring as they did before.
Understand then that
Honorable
in
Member.
addition, sorry, Mr. Chairman, that in addition to this 676 million that EPA will have as a budgetary allocation from us in this National Assembly, their expenditures for the year would include that additional $1.8 billion. So it's 1.8 plus 676 million.
Honorable Minister.
Yes, sir. The monies that you referred to, the 1.8 billion, will be accessible through the trust fund. So that they've also projected an increase, fines, fees that they will be able to access. So my understanding is this money will be available to the EPA.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Ramsden. Honorable members, I now put the honorable members, Dr. Cummings, and go ahead, Dr. Cummings. You're not, that was an accident? Okay. Honorable member, please.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Speaker. Under the contracted employees, I see you have 6 contracted employees. Can the Honorable Minister say what are these contracted employees for? What specific?
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, can we go back to, you're talking about 6116? Yes? Just give me a sec. These, just a second. Yeah, I've got it here. Just a second, yeah. This one, yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah. The six, these are renewable energy liaison officer, 353,899. Climate change officer, 259, 659. Driver, 120,831. Project manager, PMO, 599,541. Science and technology officer, 440,345. Project manager, 433,350, totaling 2.2 million. And for the year, including gratuity allowances and NIS, this would come to 36,316,285.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Mr.
Thank you, Honorable
Ramshoot.
Minister. I see in the appendix C, that's page 655. There's about 14,590,000 for training in the appendix C. And I know that there was a proposal for training of 46 members to be on the rig for like an on-site. I wanted to know if this money is sufficient or is part for those persons to do that training.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, the amount, just a second. What heading that was again? Would you mind reminding me?
Go ahead,
Quantity.
Dr.
Oh, yeah.
Honorable
Okay.
Member.
Appendix
Yeah,
D.
as I said earlier, that whatever they have international relations and regional relations with different institutes dealing with oil and gas, like in California, and a number of others who are providing training for our staff in oil and gas. And where this money may not be sufficient, then they would use this money. But they also have money from the trust fund, etc. So this is thought to be adequate for the needs at this point in case there are any other kind of training. I assume things like, if office staff needs training in sort of non-oil and gas things, for example, that they would need to upgrade staff in what are just in terms of normal day-to-day training of staff.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members. Honorable Member, Ms. Hanley.
Thank you. Just quickly, Mr. Speaker, at 6116, same contracted employees, can the minister state whether any of these employees are in charge of completing the integrated electronic data management system at EPA?
Honorable Minister.
No, those are. No, I'm